And the reason that we use the smoker is it does two things, really. The first thing is it makes the bees think that the hive is on fire. So what they do is they start sucking up as much honey as they can in anticipation of having to leave the hive and take off. But really, probably the more important thing is bees communicate by chemical signals called pheromones. And when they get alarmed, they give off an alarm pheromone that gets the rest of the bees agitated. So what the smoke does is it masks that alarm pheromone so that the other bees don't get agitated. Hive tool, you've got to have a hive tool because bees love to glue things together. So they make a material called propolis. They gather resin from the trees and they turn it into a kind of a bee glue. And they use that to seal all the cracks, seal the boxes together. They actually coat the whole inside of the hive with propolis. And it has antiseptic qualities. So by coating the whole inside of the hive, they're protecting the hive from bacteria and fungi and things like that. All right, Vanna. It's going to be stuck.
He's on vacation.
I'll let Dennis pull. So you can see this is all propolis that I was talking about here. You can see how all the frames are glued in. So this is the way the game is played. We break the propolis out, bees put it back. We go in, break it up again, the bees put it back. So the bees like to glue everything. Don't expect to see too much on this first frame. So there's three kinds of bees in the bee colony. There's first the queen bee. Do we know how many queen bees in the hive? One. We only have one queen bee. We all know that. So the other is these worker bees. So these are females, worker bees, and then you have the males, which are called the drones. The way it works is the queen, all she does is lay eggs. She lays anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 eggs a day at the height of the season. It takes 3 days for the eggs to hatch, and they hatch into a little larva. It looks like a little white worm curled up in a C shape. And they float in royal jelly. Royal jelly is a substance that the young nurse bees make, and that's what makes the queen a queen. So all the bees get royal jelly for the first 3 days. But after that, the field bees, the worker bees, don't get any more royal jelly, and they turn into non-fertile females or the workers. If they continue feeding royal jelly to the larva, it becomes a queen. So the queen receives royal jelly. So if they ever have to make it a queen, instead of going here and I take the queen out, they realize within a couple of hours the queen is not there because they don't smell or scent anymore. And they'll pick out a couple of larvae of the right age and they'll start to raise a queen. What they have to do is, because the queen is so much bigger than the other bees, they have to build the cell out. You can see actually in our observation hive, what's the little peanut sticking out? That's a queen cell. We actually have them trying to raise a new queen in that observation. See the queen nest? That's weird. Yeah, I'm seeing on this side. So why don't you hold it up and we'll talk a little bit about the color. So these are called frames. It's a requirement, actually, a law in New Jersey that all your hives have removable frames. That's so you can go in and inspect it for diseases. What the beekeepers do is they put a template in there. It's made either of plastic, sometimes plastic filled with wax, sometimes just pure wax. And the bees have to draw those cells out. So it's flat. They actually produce the wax and draw those cells out. It's the young bees that make the wax. They get wax flakes that come out of their, under their abdomen. They chew it up, get it nice, soft, and supple, and then they make this pattern of 6-sided cells. When wax is first made, it's absolutely pure white. And what happens to it is over time, as the bees walk over it and they use it for brood bearing, first it turns yellowish and then it turns brown. So if you see brown tone, you know that it's really old. If you want to see nice new tone, there's a frame in the box over there full of honey. It's a beautiful white cap. That's what wax looks like when it's first made. So the bees use the cells for a number of things. So they use them to raise brood, to raise young. They use it to store pollen, and they also use it to store honey or nectar. So when the bees, when the bees are first born, for the first 3 weeks of their life, they don't leave the hive. They do all the chores in the hive. They clean the cells out. They feed the young. A couple of them stand guard as guard bees. They even have undertaker bees to take the dead bees out and take them out of the hive. And after 3 weeks, then the bees go out and become what they call forager bees or field bees. So there's the queen. We marked her with the yellow spot. If you look closely at it, you'll see that her abdomen is a lot bigger than the worker bees. And that's so she can reach down and monitor her cells. She deposits the honey actually all at the bottom of the wax cell. So once the bees leave the hive, they have to understand how to get back in, right? They've never been out of the hive for the first 3 weeks. So what they do is they do a sort of dance in front of the hive. It's called an orientation flight. And you'll see them weaving up and down like this. And what they're doing is trying to see where the hive is in relationship to the sun, so they know how to get back home. So they do a lot of their navigation by the sun. They also come back into the hive and they do little dances, and based on how they wiggle and what direction they wiggle, that tells the other bees where the good nectar sources are. Okay, so bees, when they leave the hive, there are 4 things that they gather.
Can you point out the queen?
Sure. There she is. So she's the mother of all the bees in the hive. Oh, just crawled over to the other side. Yep, so that's the stuff. She's on the other side.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, he's
Just playing games. So we've marked this queen so she's easier to find. And actually there's a color convention that they use. So this year's color is yellow. So when I see a yellow spot on the queen, I know she was born this year. If I saw a white spot, I know she was 2 years old. She was born last year. If I see a blue spot, I know she was born the year before that. Green, and so on and red.
What's the life expectancy?
So a queen lives anywhere from usually 1 to 3 years. They can live up to 5 to 8. Probably the oldest queens that have ever been around for about 8 years. But they're typically only really productive for 2, sometimes 3 years. So a lot of beekeepers will re-queen every year, or with a good young queen every year. Other beekeepers, like me, I like to leave it up to the bees. Because what happens is, when the queen starts failing and not laying as many eggs as they think she should, they somehow sense that. And they get together, they make a communal decision that it's time to raise a new queen. And what they do is they create these queen cells that I was talking about before. And when the new queen comes out, she and the old queen battle it out until there's only one left. And it's usually the young queen, the young vigorous queen.
Beautiful on this inside.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So why are they biting? How do you get them to the biting?
Okay, so first of all, you have to understand that these are European honeybees. So honeybees are not native to the U.S. They were brought over from Europe. And they're different from wasps and hornets and yellow jackets that you probably encounter more frequently, right? They're really not aggressive at all. They're very docile. The worker bees can only sting once. They have a hard stinger, so when they sting you, the stinger stays in. When they fly away, it pulls their insides out and they die. And the bees know that. They know once it's done. So they really only sting if they feel threatened, and really only in defense of the hive. So when you see honeybees foraging out on flowers, they're not interested in you at all. So if you you've got bees that are bothering you, it's probably not a honeybee. More than likely, yellow jacket hornets or wasps. The other difference between hornets and wasps is they don't have any barbs on their sting. So they can sting multiple times. If you've ever stepped on a yellow jacket nest, you know that they just keep coming after you. Right? So that's why there's a couple of other reasons really. This is a relatively small hive. It's mostly house bees, nurse bees in here. So all they're really interested in is raising young, raising brood. The bees get a little bit more defensive, especially this time of year, because they've got a lot of honey in the hive to defend, and there's very little nectar out there now for them to bring in. So they're a little bit more ornery, but if you will, so I'll give you an example. I maintain some of the hives for the club up at Deer Park, and early in the year, I can weed rack around the hives without wearing any protective gear. I went up there a week or so ago, and I completely suited up because I knew as soon as I started that weed rack for them, they were going to be all over the end. So different times of year, they act differently. So this is the foundation I was talking about. This is before the wax is drawn out. This is what the beekeeper puts in there, and the bees use it as a template, and they build the wax out. This is the foundation here, and this is where they've actually done the cells out. So it's only the young nurse bees that can actually produce wax. So you need a lot of young bees, and you need a lot of nectar coming into the hive. So this time of year, they really don't draw a lot of wax. There's not a lot of nectar out there. So at this time of year, their focus is really on bringing nectar into the hive so that they can make enough honey to winter over. So let's talk about that for a minute. So the bees bring nectar into the flowers. Nectar is about 80% water. And what they do is they fan their wings over it, and they reduce that down to 16%. And when it gets to be 16%, then they'll cap it over with a wax cap. Once you have capped honey, it is good forever. They literally found honey in the pyramids that was still edible. It does not go bad. Nothing can grow in it, bacteria, fungi. So they cap it over. And that's what they use over the winter. That's the food source. So the beekeeper needs to be, in our area, 60 to 75 pounds of honey on the hive just for the bees to survive the winter. Okay, so what we're taking is the excess above and beyond that 60 to 75 pounds, and that's what we harvest. Okay? What happens with the bees is they're really, really good at maintaining temperature in the hive. You see a few of them fanning down here. You see how they have the little sluts up in the air and they're fanning? What they're doing is they're creating air currents to try to keep the inside of the hive at a constant temperature. The bees keep the hive at 90 degrees when they're raising brood, and even in the winter when they're not raising young, they maintain 75 degrees in the hive all year round. And what they do is they cluster together in a ball, keep warm, and they're able to detach their wing muscles. And they shutter their wing muscles, and that creates heat. And by clustering together, they keep warm and they maintain 75 degrees. So what happens is they're clustered together, it's cold, and they're eating whatever honey is where the cluster is. What happens is if we get a long cold snap where it doesn't get above, say, freezing for 6 weeks, the bees will not break cluster and they won't move. And they've eaten all the food here, and they'll actually starve to death even though there's honey adjacent to where the cluster is. So what we need in an ideal winter is every 4 weeks or so, we need a nice warm spell, a nice sunny day where it's 40, 45, maybe if we're lucky 50 degrees in December, January, and February so that they can break the cluster and move over to the honey. So what they do is typically we overwinter in 2 boxes. We call them supers to bees. And the bees start at the bottom. The top one is full of honey. They'll eat all the honey that's in the bottom one, and then they'll work their way up to the top. So by the time we get to the spring, all of the bees are up in the top box. And when you look in, you can actually see the cluster. You'll see a round shape of bees, and that's the top of what really looks like either a softball or a basketball or a volleyball, depending on how many bees there are. So they're really masters at maintaining temperature. In the summer, of course, it gets to be 100 degrees some days, right? Especially if the hive is in the sun. So to cool the hive off, what they do is they bring water in. So bees need a constant source of water in the summertime. And they spread that water around the hive. And again, flap their wings, create this air current, and the evaporation cools the hive down so that they can maintain, in this case, 90 degrees to raise brood. So typically brood rearing will slow down at this time of year until it almost becomes non-existent through the winter, and then in the spring they start to build up again. I haven't talked about pollen. So bees also collect pollen, and what they do is they bring the pollen into the hive, they store it in the cells, and they put an enzyme into it which ferments it and turns it into what we call bee bread. And bee bread, that's the protein source for the young. So pollen is a protein source, and it's really important for the bees to have healthy bees, to have a wide variety of pollen. And think about it, it's kind of like if you were only eating green beans and that was the only vegetable you ate. You wouldn't be as healthy as somebody that was eating green beans and broccoli and cauliflower and peas and corn, right? So that's one of the problems that we have today with the bees. The way we farm in the U.S. is all monochrome. In other words, in the old days when you went to a farm, they had a little vegetable garden, they had some corn, they had some beans, they had a little orchard with some apple trees, and there was plenty of sources of nectar, right, and pollen for the bees, and the bees were healthy. Now we have these large farms, which are all corn, or all soybeans, where you have an orchard, it's just an orchard. And what happens is, the bees, they only gather what's there for a couple of weeks that it's blooming, right? What do they eat for the rest of the year? There's nothing there. The bees need a succession of plants so that they can get different pollens and different nectar during the year. So that's why, just like you plant your garden in your house, the flowers, some bloom in the spring, and some bloom in early summer, and then later summer, that's really good for the bees to provide that source of nectar and pollen that they need throughout the whole summer.
So in the winter, let's say it's 0 out, you got your ball, and it's 75 on the inside. What about the good guys who are on the outside?
Great question. So what happens, that's a good question. So they maintain only that 75 degrees in here, so they don't heat the whole hive, right? But what they do is, it's really pretty cool. The bees on the outside, when they get cold, they kind of work their way, migrate into the inside, and the ones that are on the inside, they're nice and warm, they kind of migrate to the outside. And where do you think the queen is?
All the way inside.
She never goes to the outside.
I just wanted to show you that on this particular frame, there's pollen. That's pollen.
We're not going in.
And most likely, right at this time of year, this is probably goldenrod. Because the two main nectar sources for the bees in our area in the fall are the wild asters that you've probably seen growing by the sides of the road. Those purple flowers, that's a huge nectar source for the bees. Unfortunately, the county comes by and they go down, but we really need them. We're trying to talk to the county and ask them if they can just leave them for a couple more weeks. And also, goldenrod is a big source, and it makes a really dark, fruit-flavored honey. Yeah, so what happened is, typically, winter losses used to be about 10%. We lose 1 out of 10 hives every winter. Then suddenly, in 2006, beekeepers were 70, 80%. We still really have the answer, but we do know that there's a number of things that are causing the bees to not be as healthy as they should and to die. And one of them is there was a parasitic mite that was introduced into the country in 1980 from Southeast Asia, and it's not native to either Europe or the U.S., so the bees had no natural defense against it. And it's like a tick on a dog, so if you imagine a little mite on a bee sucking the blood, actually it's called hemolymph, they're sucking the juices out of the bee, and it weakens the bee. They do that when they're developing, and so even if the bee doesn't die, it comes out in a weakened state. But probably more importantly is these mites carry bee viruses. They carry at least 6 or 7 or 8 different bee viruses. One of them, for example, is called deformed wing virus, and it causes the bees to be born with shriveled up wings, and they can't fly. So that's one factor, and that's a big factor. So what did the beekeepers do when these mites first came over? They said, oh, we've got to kill the mites. So they put all these chemicals in the hive to kill the mites. And it did for a couple of years until the mites developed resistance. Because he killed off all the ones that weren't resistant, and the ones that were resistant just kept multiplying. So those chemicals end up being absorbed into the wax. I told you the wax, the beekeepers usually, some beekeepers leave wax in the hive for 5, 10, or more years. But what we've learned is that pesticides and the chemicals that we use to treat for mites, it gets soaked up like a sponge in the wax. So the beekeepers today try to rotate code out of their hive every 3 or 4 years. So typically at a 20 frame, we'll take 3 out every year, put 3 new ones in. So there's that. Then there's pesticides. There's a raging debate that's going on right now about pesticide and the effect that it has on bees. There's a class of pesticides called neonicotinoids. They're made from nicotine, and they're a systemic pesticide, and they're used on all the genetically modified corn that we grow, which is the only corn we grow. And it's a systemic pesticide, so they put it on the seed, and as the seed grows, it stays in the plant, and it goes to all parts of the plant, the leaves, the pollen, the nectar, and it's very, very toxic to bees. But in addition to that, so we know it'll kill bees if they get a high enough dose, but we also think that when they get low doses, that it also is having some sublethal kind of effects, where maybe it makes it hard for them to orient and understand how to get from place to place. So it's a combination of all of these things. They've actually banned the neonicotinoids in Europe, in some countries in Europe, like France, and they've seen the bees bounce right back. So there's a number of groups, environmental groups, that have sued the EPA because the EPA didn't require really any robust testing of these pesticides before they approved them. And we actually filed an injunction, and the EPA refused to honor the injunction. And so now we're trying again, at least to get them to go back to the Monsantos and the Bayers of the world and do the studies to show the effects that these pesticides are having on bees. It's not a clear-cut case where, yes, this is the cause, this is it, but I think it's a number of all of these factors that's causing the decline of the honeybee. Having said that, so 2006 we lost 70 to 80%. This year in New Jersey we lost 30%. So we're doing better, but it's still not good. You lose a third of your bees every year, and that's not a good way to try to make a living.
Also, why aren't you being bitten in there?
Well, as I said before, honeybees are really very gentle by nature. They can only sting once because they have a barbed stinger. So once they sting you and they fly away, it pulls their insides out and they die. And they know that. So they only really sting when they're defending their hive. So if you see them out and they're foraging on a flower, they're not interested in you at all. They're interested in one thing, and that's getting nectar. So they're really very gentle by nature. People confuse them a lot with wasps and hornets and yellow jackets, which are a lot more aggressive. Plus, they have smooth barbs. The hornets and the wasps and the yellow jackets, they can keep stinging you multiple times. A honeybee can only sting you once.
Okay. Involved, it's what we're trying to do, but go back to we have a tower of hive boxes like that one on the floor. Okay, our brood box is on the bottom. The smaller box, generally you would call a honey suit. We like to have our queen kept in the bottom because if she moves up to the top, she can start laying eggs in the top. What she does is she fills the whole hive with no linear. So we put a super on there for honey, and we put an excluder between them, which she can't go above. The worker bees can. So that's where they store their honey. Once it's all filled up and stored, there's an example of a full honeycomb frame over there. And then what happens is we take that frame. Now, we're surplus. We're going to keep it for us. Which is why we kept the bees in the first place. So we're going to take this frame of honey, we're and we're going to take the wax caps off of the end of the cells. Now we have a kind of a glob of honey running out of it, and we got wax on our tools, and it's kind of, but what we do then is we put this honey comb with the frame in an extractor, which is a device that spins this frame, and the centrifugal force throws the honey out against the sides of the barrel of our extractor. It runs down to the bottom. We collect it from the bottom with the valve at the bottom. We could actually take our bottles and hold our bottles under it and collect honey. It won't be as clean because there are going to be remnants of bees to a minor, but a little bit. You might find a neck or a wing or something. So we'll run it through a filter, let it drip through, and you can actually take the honey that we pulled out of this. We pulled it out of this hive today. We can have it in a jar for dinner, ready to eat. We don't add anything. We don't take anything out except pieces of beef. That's basically how we do it. Now, I don't know how long you've been watching, but normally in a normal beehive, we like to leave 55 to 70 pounds of honey in the hive for the bees, for the winter, so they can make it through. What we take is surplus of honey. If we took it all, we could have a problem when they do cluster. There's no honey at that spot when they cluster. So it warms up, they move up, or they would move up to the second story of the honey super, no honey there either. So we don't take it all. The process is relatively simple, but it's kind of it's a little sticky.
It's a lot sticky.
It's a little sticky. Most of us have some place where we do it, where we don't stand. You don't do it in the kitchen. You don't do it in the kitchen.
Not if you want to stay married, you know.
But to stand here, I've been standing pretty much in the same pew place since I came in. One, I don't want to step on any bees. Two, you get used to it. You walk around sticky. You track it everywhere. You get in your truck or your car, leave your apiary, you got a whole thing of honey. Get in and step on the leg, step on the head. It's not a real difficult process. What Bob was saying about the bees being bees from they have a job. They don't care about it until such time as you threaten them, or if I reached out and grabbed this guy, wait, you know, I just things back. But generally speaking, they don't care. Anything else?
There's also another method to collecting honey, and that's called simply crush and strain. So you just take the honeycomb out, you crush it up, you put it through a strainer, you got your clean honey. So some beekeepers do that, especially the smaller ones that don't have a lot of honey to harvest. Because extractors are expensive, number one, and number two, you really need them when you have a lot of honey to extract. You can get anywhere from 40 pounds, it's kind of an okay year, to as much as 100 or 150 pounds of honey off of a hive. Again, think about that. That's the surplus above and beyond the 60 or 70 pounds that you're leaving for the bees. That's a lot of honey. That's a lot of visits for those bees to flowers, bringing back a little. It's estimated that a typical honeybee in its life makes about 1/4 of a teaspoon of honey. So you imagine how many bees it takes to make pounds and pounds of honey. It's a lot.
In a normal hive that size, that's on the ground over there, there's somewhere between 45 and 70,000 bees. That's in good health. There's a lot of teaspoons. There's a lot of teaspoons.
When you think about how many trips back and forth that is to make that kind of honey, it's amazing that they produce any excess at all. They do. And that's why really the trick to beekeeping is you're trying to maximize the number of bees that you have to coincide with the time when there's the most things that are blooming or forage that's out there. We call it a nectar flow. So typically the big nectar flow here is usually from around the middle of June to maybe middle to the end of July. But it varies from year to year. So for this year, for example, it was a month early. The flow was over by June, right? Because everything bloomed in April and May, and things that were supposed to bloom in June had bloomed already. So you're trying to time it so that you have the maximum number of bees at the time when there's the most nectar out there. What makes that tricky is that if your bees build up too fast and they get crowded, they sense that it's too crowded in there, and then they decide to swarm. And when bees swarm, they look around and they say, boy, there's not enough room here, and the queen and half of your bees leave. And that's when you see them hanging in a clump. You know, people see them. Well, those are bees that have left the hive, and they're looking for a new place to live. It's nature's way of kind of propagating the species, right? So the bees that are left back, they raise a new queen, and the old queen and half your workforce just left. So you just missed out on the opportunity to take the most advantage of that nectar. So it's really a little bit of art and a little bit of science in terms of maximizing your honey production.